Hello, everybody, and welcome back to What's the Word? Today is Friday, January 29th, 2021. And today the word comes from John chapter 15, verse 2, which reads, "Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that continues to bear fruit, he repeatedly prunes so that it will bear more fruit, even richer and finer." To prune means to reduce the extent of something by removing superfluous, meaning surplus or unwanted parts. So we know that pruning is the process of increasing fruitfulness and growth by cutting away dead branches or overgrown branches. But the word also says that God prunes branches that bear fruit. So even if you find yourself to be blessed, but you're losing things such as friendships or anything else that previously occupied your time, don't be overly concerned because that very well could just be the pruning process. Starting off today's scoreboard watching with Maryland basketball, who on Wednesday lost to 14th ranked Wisconsin 61-55. The Terps missed 11 of their first 13 shots to open the game and went into the break trailing by 18. They eventually found the rhythm at the beginning of the second half, going on a 20-5 run to cut the deficit to just 3. Wisconsin would then go on another run to build a lead of 18, just to see Maryland storm back again, only trailing by 7 with 2 minutes remaining. However, the Terps' comeback bid would end there as they just did not have enough left in the tank. As for what I liked in this game, Maryland shot 88% from the free throw line, but that leads me to what I didn't like. They settled for outside jumpers, and they weren't aggressive enough. That 88% came on 8 of 9 free throw shooting, so they didn't get to the line enough. And like I said, that lack of an interior presence that Maryland has had all season makes them settle for outside jumpers. And, when that's working, that's all well and good. But tonight it was not. Or not tonight. On Wednesday night, it was not, as they shot 8 of 30 or 26% from 3. Next up for Maryland, they will face Purdue Tuesday at 8 p.m. Moving on to the Washington Capitals, whose week consisted of a 2-game set with the New York Islanders. The first of which on Tuesday, the Capitals defeated the Islanders 3-2, and their special teams was spectacular, killing off all 3 of the penalties, which unfortunately all came in the second period. But they were 1 of 2 on their own man advantage, with John Carlson scoring the power play goal. Unfortunately, the failed power play was of the 5-minute major variety, as Lars Eller, one of their centers, took a pretty bad hit from behind, sending him into the boards, and he was injured, missing the rest of the game as well as the second game. Nicholas Backstrom also was injured in this game, taking a puck to the face, but he would return for the second game on Thursday. Back to Tuesday, where Justin Schultz scored the game-winning goal with 26 seconds remaining, just when it looked like a would-be franchise record 5th consecutive overtime game would be required. Capitals goaltender Vitek Vanacek stopped 32 of the 34 shots he faced. Meanwhile, Islanders goaltender and former Capital Semyon Varlamov had only allowed 1 goal in 3 games on the season, allowed 3 goals in this game, and the series would only get worse for him. That brings us to Thursday, where the Capitals defeated the Islanders 6-3. The story was once again the second period, but this time in favor of the Caps. New York started the game with 3 first-period goals, but Washington answered with 5 goals of their own in the middle stanza. Tom Wilson, returning from a 2-game absence due to injury, would go on to add an empty net goal while on the power play with just 31 seconds remaining. Speaking of the special teams, they were 2 of 3 on the penalty kill and also 2 of 3 on the man advantage. Connor Sherry got the goal scoring going in the second period for the Caps, scoring twice, followed by Garnet Hathaway, John Carlson, who had a power play goal, and Zdeno Chara, who had his first goal as a member of the Capitals. Next up for the Capitals, they take on Zdeno Chara's former team, the Boston Bruins, tomorrow at 7 p.m. Another storyline to look out for is Brad Marchand, who plays for the Boston Bruins, but of course he had to mind the Capitals' business when talking about their COVID situation, saying it's more of a respect thing. We all want to be able to play, and there's rules put in place for a reason. They're not that hard to follow. Brad Marchand is one of those type of players who gets under the skin of a lot of players in the NHL, especially the Capitals. And as it turns out for him, the first opportunity that the quarantine players for the Capitals get to return happens to be tomorrow for that game against the Boston Bruins. So look out for a lot of hitting and maybe even a hockey fight. On to the NBA, where the Washington Wizards' losing streak continues. First, losing to the Houston Rockets on Tuesday, 107-88. That, of course, meant the return of Russell Westbrook to Houston, and the stat line looks pretty good. 19 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists. But, of course, it's always more than meets the eye with Russ, as he had 6 turnovers. And the really damning stat is he's now up to 163 points on 163 shots. So, of course, the same old inefficiency for Russ. Of course, the real storyline on the night was John Wall's first opportunity to go against the team that traded him. 24 points in 24 minutes, and of course he had to show us some vintage John Wall with this behind-the-back move, finishing the lefty layup through some contact. As for his former backcourt mate, Bradley Beal had 33 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists, but also failed to take care of the ball with 5 turnovers of his own. Washington wasn't really out of this game, as the final score would show, as they only trailed by 6 points with 6 minutes and 26 seconds remaining, but that came before a coach's challenge which overturned a charge call, which you can see here. Pretty good call. But that led Houston on a 22-9 run, and Washington eventually fell by the aforementioned 19 points. Washington had 21 turnovers on the game, so they're failing to take care of the ball. They shot terribly from beyond the arc, 19% or 5 of 26, and their bench was outscored 41-24. One of the things that can be said for their lack of bench production is the fact that they're still missing half the team, but excuses are excuses. The second end of the back-to-back on Wednesday resulted in a 124-106 loss to the New Orleans Pelicans. Bradley Beal did all he can with 47 points on 17 of 37 shooting, 6 of 14 from 3. He added 6 assists, 4 rebounds, and 4 steals, and took care of the ball a little bit better with 3 turnovers in 40 minutes of play. The only other starter for the Wizards in double figures was Robin Lopez with 14 points. But of course, the story for Washington is their ineptitude on defense, as Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram each had 32 points, and the Pelicans shot 51% as a team. They also won the rebound battle 50-39, so when you're giving up that many second chance points, Washington really had no chance. If there was a lone bright spot, it was their bench, as they actually won the bench battle 34-27. Garrison Matthews led the way with 15 points, and Jordan Bell on a 10-day contract is showing exactly what he came here for, defense and rebounding. He had 11 rebounds and 5 assists, while Alex Len, another recent signee, had a really good game in 19 minutes, 8 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, and was one of 2 players in the plus with a +2. And he had a really hard foul on Zion Williamson, which was called a flagrant, but it kept Zion honest for the rest of the game, and he really didn't seek to find his way into the paint. As for the other plus player, Jerome Robinson, he was a +4 in 22 minutes, and the team overall only had 11 turnovers. Still not great, but it's better than the 21 turnovers from the night before. But of course, there are no moral victories when talking about a 3-11 team who's on a 3-game losing streak. And when asked whether or not he's frustrated, Bradley Beal responded, "Is the sky blue?" I know a lot of talk has been about getting Bradley Beal out of Washington, putting him on a winning team. But, my retort to that is Brad signed a contract extension. If he didn't want to be here, he didn't have to sign that extension. He has an option for the 2022 season. So if, of course, we're not winning by then, maybe it is time to consider trading Brad. But as of now, he's hankered down, saying that he really wants to win in Washington, and his focus is on turning the season around. Washington's next opportunity to do that is today as they take on the Atlanta Hawks at 7 p.m. And the good news is they will have some players returning from the COVID list, as Davis Bertans, Rui Hachimura, and Mo Wagner are all available for tonight's game. In other news for Washington, the NBA tried to alleviate some of those 6 postponements by adding 3 new games to their schedule. The first against Portland, February 2nd at 8 p.m., followed by a rescheduled game against Charlotte, February 7th at 1 p.m., and finally a game against Boston on Valentine's Day at 1 p.m. The only bad thing about those 3 new games is they all create a back-to-back for the Wizards, so more minute management for Russell Westbrook. In some quick baseball news, the Washington Nationals reportedly signed catcher Alex Avila to a 1-year deal. I mentioned earlier in the week that they needed a backup catcher to go behind Yan Gomes, so Alex Avila is just that. He's left-handed, so most of his at-bats will come against righties, and he has history working with 3 of the members of Washington's pitching rotation, catching Max Scherzer in Detroit, including his Cy Young Award-winning year, catching Patrick Corbin in Arizona with the Diamondbacks, and catching John Lester with the Chicago Cubs. The Baltimore Orioles also made a free agent acquisition, signing shortstop Freddie Galvis to a 1-year, $1.5 million deal. Despite boasting a career .247 batting average, he's sort of limited offensively, doesn't hit a lot of home runs, doesn't get on base often, and his strikeout numbers are sort of borderline. But other than last season, he's known as a steady defender who rarely misses action. Last but not least, the Baltimore Ravens' former assistant head coach David Culley was hired to be the new head coach of the Houston Texans. Culley also served as the Ravens' wide receiver coach and passing game coordinator. The real reason I brought this up was to talk about some social justice issues. Culley, who is a black man, is now just one of 2 black head coaches in the NFL behind Mike Tomlin, my fraternity brother, and one of just 5 minority coaches in the NFL, one of which is Ron Rivera for the Washington football team. But I want to say congratulations to David Culley. He's never had a head coaching position in his career, and he is the oldest such coach to get a first-time opportunity at 55 years old, but I think he'll make a remarkable coach, and I'm extremely grateful that he has given this opportunity. But I also want to say that the Houston Texans and their timing of this is pretty diabolical. David Culley was hired to be the new head coach on Wednesday, and yesterday the news was leaked that Deshaun Watson, a black quarterback, officially requested a trade from the organization. And according to Stephen A. Smith from ESPN, that news was leaked directly from the Houston Texans organization. So the timing of this is really weird. Instead of being able to celebrate David Culley's hiring as a head coach in the league and adding more minority coaches in the NFL, we're now talking about a player who wants out right after the hiring of a black coach. By no means is this David Culley's fault, as Deshaun Watson's request actually came a few weeks ago, but I really think it's a diabolical move from the Houston Texans to leak that news the day after hiring a black head coach. But since Deshaun Watson has officially requested a trade from the Houston Texans, I will point you to an article I wrote about the pros and cons of the Washington football team trading for him, and that article will be in the link. A link to that article will be in the video description. But that's really all I have for today's episode. Thank you everybody for tuning in. God bless.